Very good afternoon to all. I'll be speaking on genetics in ophthalmology.
Can you full slide, ma'am?
I have chosen this topic because almost half of the diseases in ophthalmology are directly related to genetics. So, with advancement of the molecular genetics, it is must for everyone to understand the genetics. So, quickly, I'll go ahead with my objectives. These are my objectives for today's topic. I'll be discussing all of them one by one. First objective is what is the need of ocular genetics. The eye is, sorry, one second. Eye is second only to brain in its frequency of involvement in genetic disorders. All over the world, approximately 1 in 1,000 people are affected with genetic eye diseases. Almost 50% of pediatric blindness is directly related to genetic etiology. So this is the burden of genetic eye disorders, which necessitates its understanding. A decade back, we clinicians used to end up saying patients that there's no cure for your problem because it's a defect of gene. Well, times have changed with the advent of when FDA approved RP65 gene therapy for the inherited retinal degeneration. And this major breakthrough strengthened the hopes of gene therapy. We do see all these disorders from anterior segment to posterior segment in our day-to-day practice, which are directly linked to genetics, and the list is very long. World has changed from morphology-based to gene-based classification. Approaching a disease along with inheritance pattern and genetics leads to accurate diagnosis, thereby accurate management. Hence, it is crucial for all of us to understand the genetics of eye disorders. My second objective is very short. That is on basics of genetic defects. Changes in the sequence of nucleotides within the gene result in protein malfunction, abnormal phenotype, and disease, which is called as mutation. Third objective is on the role of genetic counseling and pedigree charting. Genetic counseling is a pretty critical part of genetic evaluation, with pedigree playing a major role by providing a clue to pattern of inheritance and also identifying at-risk family members. Also, it gives idea on constricted gene pool when there are ethnic similarities and consanguinity. Genetic counseling also includes counseling on reproductive options and guides for specific diagnostic testing. These are the various types of inheritance which we have been studying way back from medical school. My fourth objective is on the role of genetic counselor. Genetic counselor acts as a bridge between clinician and patients. He or she describes the concept of genetics and DNA to patients, evaluates the motivations for undergoing genetic testing, draws a detailed pedigree diagram, counsels patients regarding ethical concerns, addresses the apprehensions of patient, and also explains the various types of genetic testing and their role. Last objective is genetic testing, why and when. It's to find answers for the following questions for our patients, that is genotypical diagnosis, genotype-phenotype correlation, knowledge on progression of the disease, knowledge on future risk occurrence in the family, identify treatable systemic entities, and a probable future cure by solving the problem at root cause. How does genetic testing performed? It's performed on blood or other tissues to identify the changes in chromosomes, genes, or proteins. The primary approach for investigation of genetic eye disorders is through next generation sequencing. These are the major types of sequencing. Whole genome sequencing provides all the information which is there in the entire DNA, that is the genome. Whole exome sequencing covers a proportion of genome. Targeted ophthalmic panel, also referred to as clinical exome sequencing, specifically captures the defects in particular gene responsible for the disorders. Example, retinal dystrophy panel, congenital cataract panel, etc. So which sequencing to do for genetic eye disorders? Do we want to know the whole genome? Absolutely not necessary. Do we want to know the exome? Whole exome sequencing is only indicated when both ocular and systemic features are not coming together as a single disorder. In that case, yes, we can go for whole exome sequencing, but most of the times in our clinics, one is able to come up with a strong morphological diagnosis to look for specific genes. In that case, whole exome sequencing is absolutely not necessary. So one can only do a targeted gene sequencing for the particular disease which is the most common scenario encountered in ocular genetic disorders. So I would like to tell two stories to highlight how genetic evaluation helps us in day-to-day life. So my first story is about a common scenario, that is retinitis pigmentosa. Here is a 31-year-old male patient who was a known case of RP for the past 15 years with gradual deterioration of vision in seek of some hope ever since he was diagnosed with RP. Recent BCVA was 2200 in both eyes. Typical RP features, was on regular genetic counseling. Option of genetic testing was well explained to him, but due to the fact that it might not help him with therapy, he was not fully convinced to go for genetic testing at that time. Well, he came back to us when he was planning for a family to know the risk of occurrence in the child. This was the pedigree, which showed that he was the only person affected in the family for at least 3 generations, hinted towards a probable autosomal recessive or sporadic mutation. So we went ahead and did clinical exome sequencing for retinal dystrophy genes. It showed a pathogenic affection of RPE65 gene with the autosomal recessive pattern. Yes, after the test, there is a hope for the patient as RPE65 gene therapy is available. So the patient was happy. But at this point, the main objective of the test was for family planning. So we went ahead with spouse genetic testing and performed a targeted sequencing for variations in the RPE65 gene, which was detected in the husband. The spouse did not show variations in the RPE65 gene. So there was double happiness for both of them. And they can go for family planning with a 50% risk of child being born as just carrier and not affected at all. So this is one common scenario which helped us. The second case story is about a 7-year-old boy with features of low vision for the past 1 year. Also had history of myoclonic seizures and delayed developmental milestones. Both his fundus showed some RP degeneration changes, minimal attenuation of vasculature, autofluorescence showed some hyper regions, but not conclusive of anything. Well, ERG was subnormal. But by ocular and systemic phenotypical features, did not fit into syndromic RP at least. No history of deafness, balance abnormalities, obesity, polydactyly. So we were thinking of something else. We were dealing with something else. So the pedigree showed affected brother, equal affection of males and females in the previous generation, with unfortunately death of all of them. So we realized that something is definitely missing. Unlike the previous case, we did not know exactly what we are dealing with this. So instead of targeted gene sequencing for dystrophy, we went ahead with whole exome sequencing. And the sequencing showed homozygous frame shift mutation of CLN3 gene, which is causative of neuronal ceroid lipofuscinosis, a neurodegenerative lysosomal storage disorder, which is characterized by vision loss at 4 to 10 years of age, behavioral and cognitive dysfunction, seizures, and premature death. Among this, the visual will be mostly presenting as rod cone dystrophy in a dystrophy pattern. Visual rehabilitation was initiated and was referred for neurologists for systemic supportive therapy. This case clearly taught us the role of stepwise approach in genetics. So this is what I wanted to highlight in this talk. These were points for discussion which I had sent also. I thank all my team here, the retina team who deal with inherited retinal degenerations, and also our genetic counselor. Thank you all.